welcome to New Game Plus TV live on Twitch. You might be hanging out with us live on Twitch on C31, C44, or listening as a podcast. My name's Cringe, and this week I'm joined by Jason and Don. How you guys going?
Hello.
I'm good, but it's all blurring at the moment. I've got so much on at the moment, and it's been great. This is the first gig I've had since it all kind of kicked in. So if you got nothing to do on Saturday, do make sure you check out the Tekken stream on the Namco Bandai channel. But otherwise, it's been good, matey. Any
sort of work is good work at this point.
That is true.
Do not mind in the slightest. This week on the show, we've got a space episode. We were decided, because of the games you guys have been playing, Don, you kind of kicked it off with Star Wars Squadron, which is it VR exclusive?
No, it's VR option. VR is part of it, but no, you can't play it on a flat screen, as the VR community likes to call it.
Oh dear Lord!
Yeah,
that's the worst thing you've ever said. Oh my God! If I couldn't have any more disdain for VR, oof.
I'm sorry, I can't see or hear you coming from the world of tomorrow.
Unless he drops it.
That's fine. Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Oculus Quest 2, let's go.
Oh, my Lord.
And Jason,
too much money.
When you get the Zuck. You've been playing Rebel Galaxy Outlaw.
Yeah, so Rebel Galaxy is a game that came out a while ago, I'm pretty sure. From memory, it was, I want to say 2018. And they made Rebel Galaxy Outlaw, which is like a more focused version. You take on the role of, I can't remember her name. God, what a great review. And it's kind of, her husband dies, and it's a little bit more edgy and a little bit more kind of, to go with Don's thing, Han Solo-y. So it's been really good. I bought it out on a whim. Actually, I take that back. I got sent that one on a whim. They said, "Hey, do you want to give this a try?" I said, "Yep." And I've loved it. I've played hours and hours of it. So very keen to talk about that in depth.
Good stuff. Well, all of that's coming up later on in the show. But first, let's get into the video game news of the week. We're going to start off with Sony. They have detailed backward compatibility on PS5. In a PlayStation blog post, Sony said more than 99% of the 4,000 plus games available on PS4 will be playable on PS5. Just 10 titles have been designated as incompatible, and they'll be labeled as playable on PS4 only in the PlayStation Store. They include Afro Samurai 2, DWVR, Hitman Go, Joe's Diner, Just Deal With It, Robinson the Journey, Shadow Complex Remastered, Shadwen, TT Isle of Man, and We Sing, which I'm sure we're all really going to miss. The blog post also outlined the PS5's Game Boost feature, which will deliver improved or more stable frame rates. Some titles with unlocked frame rates or dynamic resolution up to 4K may see higher fidelity and improved loading speeds with Game Boost. Having the ability to transfer game saves between a PS4 and PS5 version of the same game is up to the developer, though, and will vary title by title for cross-generational games. I'd like to say, oh wow, who would have guessed that Sony has been a little bit crap on, on cross-gen, on back and pat, but literally who didn't see this coming?
They had to do it. I think at some point, you have to recognize that they kind of had to do this because, for
and
ages,
even then they were
Microsoft,
dragging their feet.
Yeah, Microsoft have controlled the agenda around backwards compatible for a long time. And so suddenly Sony, we have it. Don't worry, for PS4, just for PS4 though. Like, it really is the elephant in the room. Microsoft is saying anything that you've ever played on a Xbox One will play now on a Xbox Series X as well, and all the new stuff like on top of that.
Yep.
Plus, I think they're looking at expanding on that as well. So, they've kind of hard committed to this ongoing support for thing. That, again, it goes back to the conversation. They're trying to set up an ecosystem. Sony are trying to set up the new gen experience, but I think they're underestimating how big a pool having all your old games available is. And yeah, I don't know. It's weird that like that they've suddenly out of the blue decided that, oh no, it turns out we're actually going to do it, guys. Don't worry. Like, forget all that conjecture we've had for literally months. We're definitely doing it. Don't worry. It's fine.
Yeah, they've stumbled quite a fair bit on the messaging, like on the messaging of PS5 as a whole. As in, we found out about the console and some of its specs through a leak in Wired magazine. We found out about backwards compatibility through a GDC speech. and we still don't know. A month out from the console, we still don't know what's called like certain elements of what the PS5 experience will be like. Listen, they are still being very mum about the user experience.
Yeah.
Admittedly, even Microsoft has unveiled that slightly. Sony still has their cards very close to their chest as of recording.
I mean, a lot of that. I'm just going to quickly say a lot of that would probably come down to the fact that Xbox One X, Xbox Series X's are out in the wild now, whereas PS5s. I actually haven't seen any press with the console yet.
Some Japanese influencers have them. Right. So, and we've seen the what's called the breakdown of the PS5 that Sony produced. That thing is like 90% fan.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it is. It's a fan with a chip attached to it. It's insane how big that whirlpool is. But I guess the big thing, to kind of take away from that is, like I said, Microsoft have them in the wild. Japan, the embargoes are dropping point by point, because that was about a week ago. We found out that they've replaced Circle with X as the default on PS5, which. I don't know, if there was ever a cultural war the Japanese deserve to win, it's Maru and Butts, but that's fine, like whatever. I don't know. I'm just, the new Xbox One update, it's the store has changed to be what I think the Series X is going to be. So at the moment, if you've got an Xbox One, it's a rough idea of what the Xbox Series X.
You're already kind of on the same experience.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same. Whereas, because that was from Survivor, looking at his videos, it looks like they're pretty similar UI. Obviously, there's differences here and there, but it looks like it's a pretty compatible / similar UI. So I don't know. I think I don't know. It all just I've harped on this for years and years. It all just strikes of old Sony, where they buy their own hype and they buy their own marketing and they buy their own silliness. And
which Xbox did that the last generation with the Xbox One.
No, that was a different problem.
It's a cycle it's a cycle as old as time. The PS2 was the biggest thing in the world, then the PS3 fumbled. The Xbox 360 took that crown, then it fumbled. Now we're seeing this generation, and if your predictions hold true, Jason, this is one where the PlayStation will stumble with the PS5, whilst the Xbox what's called thrives. It's the underdog. It's the ones that are real hungry for the victory that end up being better. Having said that, what's a generation anymore? So this could also it could just be moot.
But that goes back to the point. Is that's true when talking about Microsoft, but Sony are making a big deal out of a generational shift. Like they're trying to play it like it is. It's a new experience. You'll only be able to experience them on PS5, and Microsoft aren't playing that message. Microsoft are playing, hey, how good's Game Pass? And so, you're right. The answer is always don't have film gronks or lawyers or potential Zinger CEOs running your company if you want to make video game sales. That seems to me like the pretty obvious answer. Fucked on metric. I don't know.
Pretty safe bet. No,
that's a lesson we're all going to agree on. Having said that, though, to go back to the list of games which Sony has confirmed as being incompatible with the PS5, that is an eclectic list there. As in, you can see certain games not coming over due to licensing issues. I can imagine games like TTL of Man, Shadow Complex Remastered, or Afro Samurai fall into that. But also games like and Hitman Go Definitive Edition, and possibly Joe's Diner. Yeah, I figure they're more coding issues where these are games like Hitman Go, especially that started off as a mobile game. I imagine maybe they needed to use duct tape and Windex to cobble it together for PS4. So doing anything else would just make the whole thing fall over itself.
My only counter to that would be Hitman just bought themselves out. So they just bought all of their licenses and IP back.
Which is why it might be a coding thing as opposed to a licensing thing.
Go sits in that weird spot where they maybe we don't care about Hitman Go, or maybe that was a separate licensed option. I don't know.
It might have been a bit of a black hole where they use older parts of an SDK, and now that's not relevant. But most devs have updated their games, and that just sticks out as it kind of got lost in the handover, and now it's who's going to bother?
And TT's obviously that would 100% be licensing. Licensing a road races. Yeah.
It's always really fun when they license cars and music, and then the games get taken down. Forza Horizon 3. Not bitter. That's fine. Moving on. There we go. And Sonic the Hedgehog is Fall Guys' next previous. We'll get to that in a sec. Celebrity guest skin. The Blue Blur was available from October 14th and could be purchased in-game for 10 crowns. Sonic's cameo comes following Sega's 60th anniversary. Fall Guys Ultimate Knockouts second season began recently with medieval-themed costumes and levels. Mediatonic, the developer, also ramped up the amount of crowns available to players in the season pass by about 600%. I actually haven't been playing Fall Guys, so I can't verify that number.
It's 600% sounds like a lot, but ultimately going from like say three or so crowns that were offered as part of the season pass.
I'm on 4,
3 or 4 up until like say what's called like maybe 11
20.
or 12 or something like that. Having said that, it's all pretty backloaded. So like at level 3, like level 2 or 3, you get 1 crown. At level 9 or so, you get a crown. It's only up when you get up to like say the high 20s, low 30s when you start getting like 3 crowns, 6 crowns per drop, which I suppose is there to sort of still incentivize people to play the game, to interact with the battle pass. But so by the letter of the law, that 600% increase is true. In practice, it still means that a lot of people sort of who are still vying for their first win, they probably won't be able to get the crowns to buy the Sonic skin unless they've really saved up. And having said that, as of recording, I think it's actually fallen off the store.
So the reason, okay, there's 2 things said there. Number one, I think I agree with you, Don. I only got 20 levels in the last season pass for Fall Guys, but I won 2 or 3 times, so I've got 4 or 5 crowns. So it's like that works out to my thing. But I've heard that they have upped the kind of the drop rate, if you will, during the season pass. The second part of it is it's still worth discussing because Sega have been doing some weird stuff for the 60th anniversary. I'm surprised Dermy isn't on the show because they were talking about 60th anniversry Sega shit.
So that hum you can hear in the background is just Dermy squealing at the news.
It's him booting up his Amiga. Like Streets of Camarocho, I made a joke on the New Game Plus Facebook page. I just like to put this out there because the way they'd done a lot of the art for Steam for this was they turned them into like Master System cases and whatever system they'd come from, they turned them into cases from, or they'd had a bit of fun with it. We were joking like, haha, 8-bit Yakuza. And I said, I mean, I could see a 16-bit Yakuza working, just have like side-scrolling beat 'em up with like RPG elements.
Just Streets of Rage, but Yakuza.
Along comes Streets of Camarocho. And it is exactly that, you know what I mean? Like, especially after the reception that Streets of Rage 4 got, like it's such a good game. But yeah, I don't know. And then they've also got Golden Axe, which is like a vertical slice of like the Golden Axe attempted reboot from when Sega still had a studio in Australia. Like, I mean, that's how far back we're going.
It was a prototype that was developed, that was produced in 2 weeks. I want to say, like, there was a thread on Twitter from Tim Dawson, who was one of the 2 developers that made that prototype, and it's a pretty damning thread actually of the kind of pressure that they were under to try to shoot out this prototype, and then sort of the management decisions behind it, and like it's a sobering read for sure.
And so it like this is the thing, like, so Sega, especially Sega in the West of 10 years ago, I mean, that was the Randy Pitchford era. Do you know what I mean? Like, that was Colonial Marines era Sega, which
that was
never,
Alpha Protocol Sega.
Yeah. So, there's that era where at least they were trying stuff, but they just did it in obviously such an ass backward way that nothing worked. The flip side of that, of course, is like, I don't know, like you hope that things are getting better, but I mean, as we can see from the current Twitter spat between Shreya and whatever her name is from Game Informer, people are desperate to stick up for crunch time. So I don't know, like it's a real hard one to pick. But
I might go into that a little bit after news, just because I'm curious to hear about it, and we can have that sitting on Twitch and as part of the podcast.
Sure.
Go on to the next one, because this is, I mean, who doesn't love to talk about Epic and Apple?
Epic.
I like me a good billionaire slap fight. What's in this edition?
Coming up this time. There we go. U.S. District Judge Yvonne Gonzalez-Rogers has granted Epic's injunction, preventing Apple from removing Epic's developer account and denying iOS developers access to the Unreal Engine. However, Gonzalez-Rogers also ruled that Apple is allowed to keep Fortnite off the App Store. Citing the magnitude of the case, the judge presiding over the ongoing Apple vs. Epic legal case has stopped Apple from terminating Epic's developer account, which would prevent the company from releasing updates for the Unreal Engine on iOS. However, Fortnite will remain banned on iOS. A court date has been scheduled in 2021, which could potentially determine an outcome for the trial. While it's unclear where the court stands on the legal fight between Epic and Apple, Gonzalez Rogers wrote in their injunction grant, Epic Games has strong arguments regarding Apple's exclusive distribution through the iOS App Store and the in-app purchase system, which Apple takes 30% of certain in-app purchase payments. But they added, however, given the limited record, Epic Games have not sufficiently addressed Apple's counter arguments, which is exactly what you've been saying, Jason. It's like, that's all well and good, but like, what do you have to stand on here?
I think the Epic the Unreal Engine thing is Apple being spiteful, just to say, well, if you want to sign up with them, kind of go fuck yourself.
Rubbing the salt in.
Yeah. So to me, I think that is a bad. I think it's a bad look for them, kind of no matter what. But realistically, there's no shortage of like the people at Unity must be going, yeah, good. But like Tim Cook doesn't owe you the right to sell Fortnite. Like if you wanted it, then you'll just pay the rate that they want. If you don't want it, then cool. Like Android's there, PC's there. You can go on the Xbox, you can go on PlayStation, you can go on Switch, you can go on anything. You don't have to be on Apple. You do not have to be here. There's nothing forcing you to be here. So. Too bad, so sad. Like I don't know.
Like that's literally the argument.
Of course, and that's what I'm saying is, I'm like, to me, like I think it's a good ruling so far because like realistically, you're not owed that. You're not owed the right to access their store. Sure, you can argue from an antitrust point of view that those people. Apple should be broken up, whatever. Any of that kind of stuff is fine, but you don't get to say, we specifically deserve access to your store. If this is trying to make them come to the table and negotiate, they just won't. Like, even Microsoft are closer to a deal with them about xCloud than thing is, and that's saying a lot. So, I don't know. I've never been a big fan of Epic, at least in the recent years.
I mean, we'll go into the Xbox story now, because, Don, you brought this to my attention just before we went live, actually. Let's see if it actually... Okay, it did. Nice. Xbox head Phil Spencer has told Microsoft employees that the company is planning on bringing xCloud game streaming, the xCloud game streaming service to iOS via a direct browser-based solution. xCloud is Microsoft's streaming service, which allows Game Pass subscribers to play their games through a cloud streaming platform without owning their own hardware. It's probably worth pointing out. Previously, Apple blocked the release of the service on the App Store due to internal policy requiring every game on Game Pass to be individually reviewed. xCloud, meanwhile, was released on the Google Play Store with zero incident. Spencer is reported to have told his employees, "We will absolutely end up on iOS." The solution of offering xCloud through a browser window rather than through an app echoes what Amazon is proposing with its recently announced Luma game streaming service. It's worth pointing out, so also with xCloud, I wasn't under the impression that we were getting xCloud in Australia. That seems to have changed, right?
No, like it was always going to launch in, like, have a limited launch right out the gate. I'm surprised Australia wasn't included in that, given that Australia is typically one of the go-to regions for if you want to soft launch something, given that we have a similar demographic to America, except we just don't have the scale of America if something goes awry.
Or the infrastructure.
I'm surprised it's not here. But having said that,
English-speaking audience, predominantly male gamers, the list goes on. There's a reason everyone soft launches their stuff here.
Yep, I was definitely glad to be playing Pokemon Go several weeks before the Americans were.
And it was a couple of weeks, it was like ages before too.
Yeah, having said that, though, xCloud is reportedly coming to being made available in Australia in 2021. Well, for Android users for the time being, until Microsoft releases this browser-based solution.
Yeah. I mean, we're also going to get console streaming, which you would think is just like in-home streaming via Wi-Fi. So you can play on your phone with your controller connected to your phone via Bluetooth, via Wi-Fi back to your home console if someone's using the main TV. It seems like you're going to be able to do that over a cellular network as well. So if you've got your phone and your Xbox controller out on the go and you've got access to 4G, better if you've got 5G, but there are so few 5G phones out at the moment and the coverage is pretty spotty. And that's saying something given NBN.
Plus you've got to sign up for the devil as well at the moment, don't you? I don't think there's...
Optus and Vodafone do have 5G.
Optus has it, right.
Yeah,
okay,
But then again, like 5G is still, it's very limited where 5G is reliable. Like out in the outer suburbs, there is no 5G.
It's okay. There's out in the sticks. I mean, if you're pretty close to the city. I'm not even sure if you'd be getting 5G out where you are, Jason.
Isn't there a thing of latency on over 4G being not exactly what you're looking for, especially if you're going for a game streaming sort of solution?
I'm keen to test it out and then get back to you as soon as it launches, because that service is available now to the program's called Xbox Insiders, I think. They get early access to firmwares, different UIs on the Xbox ahead of like mainstream release or beta release, essentially. That's already out for those users. So usually there's a lead time of maybe 2 or 3 weeks, maybe a month for some of the bigger updates. So I'm keen to try it out and get back to you. But I mean, I'm trying to think of any other sort of streaming services that we've had in Australia, and there are pretty much none. Right?
Stadia still isn't a thing in Australia. I'm not sure what the situation is with Amazon's Luna service, and even then, like Amazon has basically just announced. I think it's just an announcement as opposed to a full-on launch or even a soft launch. Maybe beta is open. Yeah. Other than that, I don't think we even received any of the previous attempts at game streaming, whether it be on live way back in the early 2010s or the Sony's PlayStation Now. I'm not sure if we received their streaming solution or not.
I don't think we have Australian servers to download games from through Sony, so I doubt that they.
Also, imagine downloading things at speed on a PS4. I really hope that that's been improved for the PlayStation 5.
Yeah, Jason, you've never had to struggle pulling down updates to multiple PS4 systems ahead of a Couch Warriors event.
What could possibly go wrong dealing with? I'll tell you, I'm an
now I'm starting to see where your opinions on Sony have formed this generation, Jason.
Yeah, the trick is that there's 2 tricks. Number one, try to go to Tokyo servers because usually they're faster, which is, their servers are in Sydney, but whatever. If not, there's a way to cache the updates into your router, so you have to cache them into your router and then just download them.
Meanwhile, before we give Jason just some flashbacks and an aneurysm here, do any of us or anyone in chat for that matter, are we the audience for any sort of game streaming services? Because we're we're the enthusiast crowd, so we're very much we prioritize performance, latency, and things like that pretty highly. So, and we're also very likely to have these boxes in our homes anyway. So, I figure it's a nice to have for an audience like us, but it's not sort of the thing that is contingent on whether we subscribe to Game Pass or not. Hey,
well, I think the same can be said for a lot of VR at the moment, right? For most games, it's not required. Developers have to release a non-VR version to make any sort of money back because there's such a limited audience on VR. And so I think for maybe the first 5 or 10 years, when people were looking at Stadia or PlayStation Now launching, well, I mean, PlayStation Now has technically been a mess since day one, but they were looking at these services going, but it's not technically going to hold up with PlayStation Now, but they were expecting basically a big boom of users taking on streaming. That isn't really what I think streaming is going to be for the next 5 or 10 years. Part of that's the infrastructure, but I think part of it is also that stigma around it, right? Destigmatize game streaming, but once the infrastructure is there and once it's normal, once it's pedestrian to do that, I don't think by the end of this generation, anyone's going to be like, why would you game stream?
Yeah, but at the start of this generation, we balked at the idea of having to connect our Xboxes online to play a game. But now, basically, every game is a service, and we are perpetually connected to games to online service to play. So Don Matrick was right in that regard.
It's again the main thing with Matrick was I think. They all just assumed it was fine. You can't do this. You can't bring this up. And then, anyway, I think he assumed they lived in that world where everyone just assumed it was a license. You license software because they're Microsoft. You license our software. Yeah, it's fine. Everyone's going to be fine with that.
I've got my Office 365 sub here ready to go.
Yeah, I think that and they just took it as read. People won't care. You just subscribe. But then I think people forget that gaming has more gravitas than that. And then they've come similar to when. The High Court ruled against, chipping consoles and all that kind of stuff. I think that the way they've come around the back to get us is they overrode the idea of hardware mods with end user license agreements. That's how they got around that, because even if you mod your console, you still might be in violation of EULA. That's how they'll brick your console. nothing you can do about it because you signed off on the EULA. How they'll get you for everything being online, everything's a service. Like Marvel Avengers, the service game, no one fucking cares. But like, that's how they've gotten us. That's how they've made us do that. Whereas like, like there are still like, I just saw State of Decay come up on the screen then, and Outer Worlds, these games that are built with a single player experience in mind as well. But yeah, that's how they've got us, Don. You're absolutely right, is that anything that is pulling big numbers or pulling big audiences is game as service. So you have to play it that way. There's no other way to play it. Or if there is a way to play it, it's literally like tutorial or like static, like tests or whatever. No one wants to play that. So yeah, they got us in the end. That was the way they got us.
Although the thought just occurred to me completely aside of how something like xCloud might be relevant to us is like the opportunity to sort of try before you buy, in a sense, of essentially being able to use these as like a demo service. Because without having to risk downloading the at least 100 gigabytes files that games will be in the next generation.
200 gig COD, let's go.
It's although
for COD, they did release a patch for PC which allows you to only have the components you want installed. So cool. Yes, no longer will it be 200 gigabytes of uncompressed WAV files. Man, that game is
love Titanfall, man.
Unoptimized.
Look, I mean, Microsoft already Game Pass is kind of that. I've downloaded a bunch of stuff. I've played once and gone cool. Gone. Like, you know what I mean? Like I've deleted it. And a lot of the Game Pass games, the kind of the trick is the full game's there. And I mean, you're still talking stuff like Witcher where it's like 60 to 100 hours.
The base game is enormous.
Yeah. And then you buy the DLC. It's like, so that's how they get you. But like, stuff like Destiny. Destiny's there in its entirety. Like if you've got Game Pass, welcome to Destiny. I mean,
yes, Jason, welcome to Destiny.
Don't even get me started. I've been playing it with Cloney.
I'm literally wearing a Destiny shirt as I say this.
Look, my biggest complaint about all first-person shooters on consoles, and especially PvE ones, not PvP ones. PvP ones I can understand. PvE ones, right? Why can't I turn off auto-aim? Let me play the game the way I want to play the video game. If I feel that strafe shooting is going to work better for me, please let me turn off auto-aim. I don't think that's too hard to. If I want to limit myself, even in PvP, if I want to limit myself, let me do it, because God fucking damn it, I hate look snap. It makes me so mad. Line up a perfect sniper shot and then some pleb runs past and I'm off this way now. You mother. So, I mean, the answer is play on PC, sure, but just let me turn it off. I don't think it's too much to ask to let me just turn off the goddamn auto aim in Destiny on Xbox. Anyway, Destiny's on Game Pass. I don't know what my point was.
We flew off. That is the news of this week. Stick around. We've got more video game goodness coming up in just a sec. It's here on New Game Plus TV, live on Twitch. You might be hanging out on C31, C44, or listening as a podcast. I'm Cringe here with Jason and Don. Don, kicking us directly off into space. You've been playing Star Wars Squadron, which is not a VR exclusive game, but you can play it in VR. And I have not really paid much attention to anything Star Wars recently. So you'll have to give me a bit of a rundown as to what's going on.
Well, a long time ago in a galaxy far from here.
No, not that much, please.
That joke was dead on arrival. Not dead on arrival, though, was Star Wars Squadrons, which EA's kind of been doing okay with Star Wars games in the past year or two anyway. After the whole debacle that was Star Wars Battlefront 2. Like we've had some decent Star Wars out, but like Battlefront 2 managed to recover itself from the loot box bonanza into a serviceable online shooter. Then we had Jedi Outcast, but the single player Fallen Order, which was released at the end of last year, which by all reports was decent. And now this time we have Star Wars Squadrons, which like it's an odd one for Star Wars and EA as well, because you normally associate them with big bombastic AAA titles. This is not that. This almost feels like a B title in its announcement and its release. It's like it kind of flew under the radar, and it's got the kind of the scope of a B game. There isn't too much. There isn't too much. You have a fairly short campaign. You have two multiplayer modes, so it's pretty small in scope, and yet with everything combined, it kind of has AAA production level. So in a way, it's kind of like an A game. And indeed, like presentation is kind of like at the first thing that people notice with a Star Wars game. I can confirm that it's a Star Wars game. It's got all the sort of assets and details and the sounds that you expect from a Star Wars game, which the logical conclusion might be it's the most accurate Star Wars game out there. But that's kind of the baseline for what a Star Wars game should be, as in like they've had access to the Lucasfilm's library, or to the Disney rather library of models and sounds. So they incorporate into the game very, fairly well. And to get to what Jack, you said about VR, like they do, everything is modeled quite exquisitely, from the externals of the capital ships to even the interior of your cockpit, something that kind of shines when you're in VR and you're able to look around. You notice a tiny detail on this corner of the cockpit that is present in some of the movies, but it did not need to be there, but it was. So it very much manages to nail the Star Wars feel. Whether it nails, it also does a good job of nailing what it feels like to fly a Star Wars X-Wing or a TIE fighter. I'll just say out front, Jason, just to cut off your question.
Yeah, fine.
It's not as hardcore. It's not as hardcore as TIE Fighter is. It's kind of more Simcade might be the best analogy. Let's put this on a scale here. Over on the most basic side, you have something like, say, Rogue Squadron or the flight mechanics in Battlefront 2. Yeah. On the other side, you have a legit World War II flight simulator. TIE Fighter was somewhere about the 75-80% range. I would say that this is kind of in the 50% range, 40 to 60% range in terms of how it feels between arcade and simulator, because you still there are plenty of gizmos and gadgets that you do have a lot of control over certain aspects of the ship. So you can divert power between the engines and weapons and shields on the fly. You can, so if you want to really speed towards a combat arena, you can divert all power to your engines and boost your way there. Once you're there, you can divert all powers to the engines and take out the enemy inside. You can also do the needly things about changing which direction your shields are facing, and you can also edit the loadout that your ship has as well. So you can focus on a loadout that really attacks capital ships, or a loadout that just that prioritizes taking down other enemy combatants. But that's kind of the extent of it all. It doesn't go as hardcore as TIE Fighters, and you can't, for instance, order you can't order the systems that will be repaired when you press the repair button. The only thing you have to worry about is your shield levels and your hull integrity as a single 100-point health thing. That's about it.
Not going to lie, a game very recently that I've been playing a lot of that has very similar functionality. It honestly just sounds like the system from Rebel Galaxy Outlaw, which is a kind of a softer version of the system from Elite Dangerous. Obviously, Elite Dangerous goes into that more. Elite Dangerous is
very much into TIE Fighter and probably even further in terms of flight simulator.
I would say only because of the mercantile system, but I think
which we'll get into in a bit.
Yeah, this from watching your footage and watching other people play it really does seem like there seems to be more of a focus on the dog fights and stuff like that.
The thing that they wanted to nail down is not the sort of the pre-flight checks. It's not what's called Star Wars Flight Simulator. It is very much an arcade game where you're supposed to feel like those dogfights and in the classic Star Wars films. And one last thing on the simulator on the sort of the simulator aspirations, you kind of don't have to interact with those systems. You can't just go and willy-nilly Call of Duty style and still survive, I guess. But yeah, they do try to focus on getting those nailing the feel of classic aerial dogfights, of juking your enemies, of trying to maneuver your ship so that you're behind an enemy, or to try to or what's called deploying countermeasures to try to avoid ships. But so it does manage to sort of go then from an arcadey perspective, which is kind of all we really wanted from this, I guess.
Yeah, I think the fact that it has that little bit more depth to it and that little bit more understanding. I assume there's also it obviously has the campaign attached to it. It'll have PvP and that kind of stuff. So it had to tick all those boxes, and as long as it didn't fall down that that route of the loot boxing and stuff that really got Battlefield. it's going to appeal to the stands anyway, and having that little bit of extra depth. I mean, the hardcore stands are the ones already playing X-Wing TIE Fighter anyway, and and they're the kind of people who've either moved on to Elite Dangerous or like me with Train Sims, have the giant controller ready to go kind of thing. And actually, you probably use it for this game now. I think about it because
as in your train Majiggy.
Yeah, because you just use a throttle and it doesn't matter.
Does it have a can you control yaw and roll?
So I've got a Logitech flight stick. So I'd use controllers. Yeah. I'm just trying to think because I've use controllers here, and then I've got 3 throttles for the train. So you could realistically go full shields, full thing with just it doesn't matter.
I just want to learn if you can like hook up the soundboard that I know you've got there, Jason, as like a MIDI controller and use that to like control everything.
Make it like a miniature theremin or something like that. Like
somehow I'll try to hook up my Rock Band 3 keytar back there. See if I can use that to control the game.
I mean, you could use it as a legit MIDI keyboard, man. Like I knew people who like the full hipsters doing the gigs on them and stuff like that. So.
No, like I've got my Game Boy for that. Speaking of controls, this game does support not just controller and mouse and keyboard, but also you can also hook up a full HOTAS setup, and I certainly know that people have attempted that. There were teething issues in the game's opening weeks about the dead zone on a flight stick, but that seems a recent patch seems to have fixed that.
And that's always the issue with stuff like that is when you're not accounting for it, like you just don't know. Whereas the dead zone on a little control stick is different to the dead zone on a proper.
Especially since we're coming off the back end of Flight Simulator, where 99% of hardcore flight, like that game accounted for basically every HOTAS setup that you could possibly imagine.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, like and just to round that off, it gets there in terms of like it tries those semi aspirations, but it doesn't have track IR, which is what the full flight sim nerds want. But it does have virtual reality if you want to track if you want to move your head around the cockpit. And I've been playing on virtual reality, and I will say like it is a marked difference between playing on a flat screen and playing in virtual reality. In that, like, apart from just the 3D depth, you also you have that sense of placement within the cockpit, which sort of adds to the experience. Plus, as you're engaging in dogfights, as you're sort of trying to veer the ship around, you can also use your head to sort of try to visually track your enemy as well, which is just that extra layer over playing on playing 2D. Let's just say it's not essential. It's very much a nice to have as opposed to a must have in terms of experiencing this. And indeed, like you don't need a full HOTAS on flight stick to be able to really experience this game. I primarily played on mouse and keyboard, and indeed, by all reports, that's actually the preferred experience in terms of just getting multiplayer kills.
You've been talking a lot about the gameplay, and I appreciate that it's somewhere in the realm of that arcadey sort of sim, that I guess that spectrum you were talking about, where it lands pretty comfortably in the middle. What kind of is the story around the campaign? Because that hasn't really come up.
Yeah, like it's your standard Star Wars fodder anyway. Like that, I believe it's set post Episode 6, so. The Death Stars are destroyed, but the Empire and the Rebellion are still duking it out in their
war. The last vestiges of the old Empire kind of thing.
Yeah, so the game primarily, like you play from both sides here, which is the whole gimmick of you start off as part of the Empire, but your admiral, your captain rather, has a change of heart and decides to switch over to the Republic, where you have a few missions playing as them with this former Empire head as your leader as you try to take down the big baddies. You eventually switch back to the Empire as everything converges around the MacGuffin, which is a giant ship that the Republic has acquired. It's not great by any stretch of the imagination. And even in terms of Star Wars stories, it's there. It's enough to sort of give you context for the dogfighting arenas that are on offer. Yeah. Having said that, though, because this game revolves around a squadron of fellow pilots, you do have side characters on both the Republic side and the Empire. everyone on the Republic's side, real wishy-washy, boring. They're your basic Han Solo tropes. The characters on the Empire side, they're kind of more they're surprisingly nuanced, given the fact that this is a really short campaign, like 46 hours. So these characters are still painted with incredibly broad strokes. But you have kind of the potential for some compelling characters there. You have like, yeah, you have what's good. You have the conniving, power hungry person who knows that this is just a stepping stone towards getting in the ears of people with influence. You have the haggard water veteran who just wants this to be over and wants to return to his husband. You have the capital S soldier who knows that their only place is war and they've come to terms with that. And then you have the captain for the Empire. I forget her name, but like she has this sort of energy which is kind of like the cheese of the villain in the recent Star Wars trilogy, but as well as that just a kind of like barely controlled rage, which is really well delivered, especially through her voice actor. Like I said, this game has AAA aspirations in terms of its budget. So the Frostbite engine all the models as rendered through the Frostbite engine all look pretty top notch, and the voice acting is through the roof as well. The sense of scale looks
pretty nice. Like looking at the when you're flying around in your little windowed cabin and watching like the lights reflect off the ships and stuff. Like it does like definitely looks nice. There's no doubting that.
Yeah, but otherwise, like the campaign is kind of just a glorified tutorial in the grand scheme of things, as are all sort of like Battlefield-esque campaigns. Having said that, there are a couple of interesting things that they do with the sandbox that they're presented, and there is a mild replayability in terms of trying to get all the medals or to try to fulfill certain criteria to unlock the hidden achievements. But really, you're there just to learn the ropes for the multiplayer.
So I guess overall, the Star Wars, when you were trying to explain some of the story to me, I was like, the amount of Star Wars jargon is just so much.
Only like as a Star Wars someone who's like at best a Star Wars dilettante. A lot of the remember this references I remember. That kind of just went over my head. Battle of Endor. Yeah, that's a name I've seen on the forums once.
Remember Chewbacca? I remember.
But yeah, like it's all sort of like it's artifice to sort of train you for multiplayer, and there are two modes here: dogfighting, which is standard team deathmatch. It's actually like you can get some good matches there. It's like I said, it's the kind of the best way that shows off the game's flight feel and the space combat that goes on. There is also fleet battles, which is kind of a much more bigger mode of trying to gain momentum, trying to push the enemy line until you eventually take down the capital ship. In theory, this is kind of supposed to be held as the marquee mode. It's the reason to use not just your standard TIE fighter or X-wing, but really those matches go for way too long, and the strategy just doesn't feel like it's there. So kind of the most fun that you'll have is in the standard dogfight multiplayer match. And I've had some pretty good matches out of it, actually.
Cool. So like the Star Wars stuff, if you're into Star Wars, you're probably already kind of interested. But if you don't have a grounding in Star Wars, does it... I don't want to be like, is it kind of watered down? Because you mentioned that spectrum between arcade and sim. Does it kind of hedge its bets enough that someone that's kind of loosely interested in this kind of gameplay, say they are into Star Wars a little bit, but not fully, that they would jump all the way in? Is it accessible enough that people that might be like, well, that's not my kind of game, it might be worth having a look at?
Like I said, like even though the systems are there in terms of like diverting power and shield and things like that, it's not something you particularly have to engage in. If you just want to whoosh around outer space, the potential is very much there. You won't necessarily recreate the cinematic experiences from the movies. Like in the campaign, there are things approaching the trench. There are trench runs, lowercase t, lowercase r, but you don't have the capital T, capital R trench run from episode 4. So you're not going to be recreating it. So it's a step above the sort of old Star Wars arcade machines that you had back when we could go outside. Trench run. Yeah, but I'd say like there is certain like. It is accessible enough for someone who knows who knows what they're getting into in terms of flight combat, they will be sated. And the people who are hardcore flight sim nerds, there is enough support for their kit that they will be able to like use this as sort of a casual, relaxed, happy, fun time when enough dogfighting in World War II flight simulators or something like, say, Elite Dangerous.
Cool.
Like ultimately, in the end, like it is kind of that game in the middle, which kind of sounds bad, but it ends up pretty well. Like it is like it isn't a B game, but it isn't a AAA game. It's, for the want of a better word, an A game. It's not an arc. It's not a flight sim. It's not a it's not Rogue Squadron from back in the Nintendo 64 days. It's somewhere in the middle. Hell, even the price range is kind of reflective of that. It's not indie title price range. It's not AAA budget. It is literally in the middle. So like, as much as it kind of sounds like it's trying to compromise, it kind of ends up succeeding all of that. The sum of its parts ends up making it a pretty competent space fighter and what's called a good enough tributes to the likes of X-Wing and TIE Fighter for the modern age, really.
Cool. Star Wars Squadrons is out now on Microsoft Windows, PS4, and Xbox One. Don, you've been playing it on using VR on Windows.
I'm playing on PC, and I've been playing with an Oculus Rift vanilla, and I've not really experienced any performance issues. Though do check forums and discussions because other headsets have reported issues in terms of trying to get a consistent frame rate together.
You're hanging out with us here on New Game Plus TV. Stick around. We'll be back talking more video games in just a little bit.
One game I have been playing, Jack, on the Switch is Rebel Galaxy Outlaw.
Tell me more.
Okay, I will.
Great.
I was like, Jack's going to say something, anything, please. That's all right.
Should we draw even more attention to the pause? We can do that.
That's fine. Rebel Galaxy Outlaw is a spin-off of Rebel Galaxy. Rebel Galaxy came out 2015, apparently. I did some research while we were on break. And Don, no, I've never played it. So keep in mind that I went into this completely fresh. It was something that I saw in my inbox, and there was something I saw, like I watched a trailer of and stuff like that. I'm like, okay, I can get behind this. Got real freelancer, real wing commandery kind of vibes. And as someone who, in that era, I never had a PC that was really capable of running those kind of games. So it was like, all right, well, let's see if I can play this and enjoy it. And basically, it starts off.
Relive the childhood that could be.
Yeah, look, the main character, basically, her husband gets killed. She finds the guy who does it, well, the alien who does it, goes to kill him, fails, and then it starts off. It starts off, and it's like, I've got to follow this guy. She'd been injured, but she hasn't been any kind of like trader, smuggler, whatever, for years. So you start off with your tiny little, literally like a trash ship, and build up from there. And basically, it's about finding out the main story quest, but at the same time, you can go and do mining or do trading or all that to try to build up your funds and build up your esteem to get enough to buy the better ships and buy the better this and buy the better that. And the one thing the game, with a lot of these kind of games is this one specifically makes you specialize. If you want to be a trader, you kind of need to build that way. So you need to get ships that have more cargo space, and you're going to lose out on ability to necessarily fight and dogfight and all this kind of stuff in order to gain more ability to carry cargo. Vice versa, the opposite of that, of course, is you can spec fully in a mercenary, get top of the line fighter jets with multiple missile hard points and laser hard points and all this kind of stuff. And so the one thing the game does let you do is kind of play to this, whichever those strengths you want to do, or you can sit somewhere in the middle. Like there's some of the ships there are really good. They may not have the most shields, but they've got a few hard points and they've got a decent cargo space and blah blah blah. So it really comes down to what you want to. It really does come down to kind of how you want to play. And I guess the thing with the game is it does I'm playing it on Switch. Keep this in mind. So when I talk about this game, I'm playing on Switch. It came out on the Epic Store first, 6 months in advance. And then it's filtered through the consoles now, the exclusivity deal's up. I played it on Switch. My only regret is I should have got it on a PS4 and Xbox, because I think it does it more justice on these kind of high-powered consoles. But I've still enjoyed every minute that I've played on the Switch.
How badly does it chug on Switch?
It's less than it chug. It's more that they've just downscaled the graphics. Right. So being able to see people at distances, especially on docked, I found the performance to be worse, maybe
Worse.
because it was more noticeable.
Yeah.
But
Interesting.
yeah, just watching the pop in and stuff like that. But as you're flying around, you'll have like radio stations and stuff like that you can select through. And a couple of the main mechanics are basically like Don mentioned for Star Wars Squadron. You can go full shield. So if you're gonna just like you need to survive like an explosion, full shields to stop that hit. And then full engines. I've done that multiple times. So you'll do a mission, right? You can pick up missions from guilds, or you can pick it up from space stations. You go to the space stations, you pick it up. It might be cool. You've got to deliver this, and sometimes the delivery missions are easy. You might get stopped, you might not. You might just be on your way. So it's like, oh, cool. I've got to go to the way that the universe does. Different kind of solar systems is basically there's jump gates. You go to the jump gate, and you're off to the next one. But they're all kind of interconnected. So each system, will be connected to another one by a series of gates. So to get to, you're in Texas system, and they're all named after basically Western states, and you need to get to Juarez system. So you can go through, the 5 or 6 jumps you'll need to get there, or you can do it in 3 jumps. But you have to go through the dangerous gate, the unregulated gate. So you might come out the other side and you've lost all power to one of your guns because you like the energy, or you've crashed into a rock or whatever on the way. So there is a lot of risk reward in the way that the game plays. So you do this mission, you go, cool, I've got to drop this thing at the Juarez system, and then you get stopped by bad guys. So it's like autopilot stopped due to hostile ships in area. So that could be you've literally come across a Commonwealth fleet flying through, which is like the Federation, kind of thing, and they're being attacked by pirates. Or so you can go, cool, that's a great distraction, I'm out of here. Or you can like help them and hope that they think. But the problem with it is like, again, risk reward. You help out these guys, and then suddenly the cops will check your cargo, and it turns out that you've got salvage parts, or like human organs, or whatever particular brand of contraband that you've got, and they scan that. Now they're after you, so now you've got to escape them, or you've just helped them. They might give you a thing, but then they did chase you, so you got to escape.
Trying to jump border from Metro to Melbourne Metro to Regional Vic.
yeah, and so basically, and then I've had it happen multiple times where I've had like random hostiles come up and show up, and I've just like gone full engines. I'm out of here, just vroom. And you'll never come out of it unscathed, because there's still a lot of the ships are maybe not quite as quick as you at full engines, but laser beams are faster than you. So if you're going in a straight line, especially, they'll just laser beam you, and you'll lose some shields. But it's still better than stopping and fighting 6 ships when you're in a ship not designed to handle 6 ships. So, as you do all these missions and complete all these objectives, you deal with unsavory characters to find out more information about your husband. You need more money to access this particular spaceport, or you keep. The one thing I did find is I died a lot. So I'm playing it on not normal, the second one, the second difficulty. I think it's just
a bit harder.
I don't think it's called hard. Yeah, a little bit harder. Even on normal, this game was tough. Like I put it on hard just to give myself a bit more of a challenge, but I didn't need to. Even on normal, if you don't play this game well, you are a thing. But to go similar to what Don was saying with regards to simulation versus thing, there is a button to auto chase, so you can lock onto an enemy. You can lock onto an enemy and auto chase, and I think that's another good system that's worth mentioning in detail. But I guess I'll see if you guys have any more questions. But yeah, you can hold like left bumper, I think it is on whatever ZL or whatever it is on Switch, and then that'll lock on them, and then your shots will auto aim. So you can turn it off so that if you don't hold that ZL, your shots, you have to line up your shots, and it'll give you a reticule to hit. Like if you shoot in this circle, you're likely to hit the ship. And even then, picking your weapons for the appropriate kind of mission that you're doing matter. Like Don mentioned, similar as well, fighting capital ships, you want weapons that'll kill capital ships. So if you're taking out freighters, your normal lasers aren't going to do much, because by the time you get through it, their shields are going to regenerate, and it's going to be a thing. So basically, you either have to go like mine is designed purely to blow up capital ships, steal freight, and run. So I've got mine basically. I come up behind them onto their engines, shoot the shit out of their engines. Like I've got one particular laser beam that I then activate, which is it's like it shoots metal particulate. So just goes smash, 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 blows up the engines. I grab all the stuff and I just boot it out. That's how I always, basically, if I'm going to rob a freighter, that's how I do it. And I think that the flexibility of the game is probably its best thing for that. Though that said, there are cheese strats, and it's very quick and easy to identify those cheese strats. But you can kind of play it a little bit your own way as opposed to thing. But Don, you reckon you played the old Rebel Galaxy? Because I never played it. I'm going into this
like I touched
completely
Rebel
blind.
Galaxy very briefly, like near around its original release, and my memory of that game is that the combat was less space dogfighting like Outlaw, like Star Wars Squadron. It's kind of more akin to Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, and that they're kind of like
okay,
space
like pirate
naval
ships, yeah.
battles of trying to of trying to flank enemy ships and use your side cannons to destroy them, as opposed to what's called ducking and weaving, dodging, leading shots, and things like that. Although there does sound like there is some continuity in terms of the general space trucking aesthetic.
Yeah.
Does Outlaw manage to nail that?
For sure. Like, I mean, if you're watching the Twitch, you can see the clip at the moment, and that's they all play out like dingy little bars in the middle of these galaxies and stuff like that. So they really kind of nail that grungy aesthetic. Like you mentioned, Don, with the thing, it doesn't really play out like, because you don't really get access. The biggest ship that you have is still, you would only ever consider it a medium-sized ship in any other kind of space game. Do you know what I mean? Like you buy them like a car dealership. They're all lined up and you walk in. So it's not like, other ones where like it'll show you schematics. It's literally you talk to a guy and he's like, hey, can I, get you into a ship today, kind of thing. And the biggest ship you have does have 4 turret. You can attach 4 turrets to it. So it has huge, you can take the huge shield reactor, you can take the huge hull thing, you can take the huge power generator, all that kind of stuff. But it's got 4 turrets, it's got a couple of weapon hardpoints, things like that. So like you say, it's a similar thing where, if you are getting attacked, your best effort is to actually, kind of do these, as they come to attack you, just get on the turret and shoot them down. So it enables that different kind of gameplay, which again, I guess sounds different to what Rebel Galaxy is known for, but goes way more into that kind of wing commandery, not even necessarily dogfight, but that more squad base as opposed to wider tactics. In that, you've got 4 people attacking you. What's the best method to kill these 4 people? Like 9 times out of 10, your best bet is genuinely like run away. Get as much distance as you can between yourself and them, and then come back around and kill them one by one. Because if 3 people are attacking you on a medium-sized ship, you're dead. Like, there's very few shields that can actually hold up to that kind of thing. So luckily, you can call in people to help you and stuff. So you have a tactical icon, which you push up the tactical icon, and you can do a ping, like a scan, and that'll basically, inside of the radius of your scan, will show you every enemy, every thing that's like a cargo to pick up, any allies or any neutral ships, be it the traders or be it the Commonwealth or whatever the case may be. And then you can go into the tactical map and decide, I'm going to lock onto this person, but it gives you a perspective on just how far away these people are. So, okay, so I've got 3 guys coming in from this side. I've got 1 guy here. I'm going to zip around, kill him as quick as I can, and either try and escape or just start like finding ways to kill these guys. And so like I say, like it really, I've had so much fun with it now that I'm used to the controls. Like, it's so much easier to just kind of go cool, full engines. I'm getting out of here, full weapons, because I want to just like shoot them down. And even the mercantile, as kind of sterile as it can be, it still works, because like it still makes sense to sell this at a higher price and buy this at a lower one, and the interactions that you have with people are pretty good. Actually, that does bring me to the one point that I really didn't like about the game. The main character's voice acting is god awful. She doesn't want to be there. She obviously doesn't want to be paid for this gig. She's got no interest in being there. So I don't know why they hired her. Like, she just sounds so disinterested. And I get that it was maybe going for like, grungy,
rough.
Sort of aloof Han Solo, yeah.
Aloof, yeah. That was the thing, but it doesn't sound like that, and it doesn't come across as that. Whereas like some of the other, people that you deal with, they nail the stereo. Well, they nail the trope that they're at least embodying. But they give it a little bit more kind of spin on it, like the useless redneck brother of the big intergalactic arms dealer, and even the aliens have their own kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like those characters kind of come across, but just the main character, like, it's the worst part of it. But that said, like a lot of these games, I've done not as much story missions as I would, and I've got a couple of loadouts and a couple of different ways to to take out different ships and things like that. But I'm finally, I'm even on hard, I'm finally at the point where I'm hitting some of these real high risk missions, and it'll tell you when you pick a mission whether it's high risk or low risk. And yeah, they're terrifying. Like they're just terrifying because it's like I can't win this. Like you'll see even like there'll be like you'll be asked to help out in an existing battle, and you get there and there'll be like 15 bad guys and like 5 good guys. It's like, what am I supposed to do in this ship? Like, how am I supposed to contribute here?
So it sounds like this is kind of the opposite of Star Wars. That it's not a power fantasy game. It's very much it's very much you're just another piece in the cog, albeit one with a lot more backstory and motivation. But you're still basically just space truck. Actually, on that note, like if I don't like you say, like you said that there are sort of many ways to approach the game, as you can like go full fighter, you can go freighter. Like, does the game provide the depth and capacity to, if you just want to go for Elite Dangerous style space trucking of shipping around resources around to different corners of the galaxy for maximum profit, or if you want to just blow up every single ship in the galaxy ever? Are those viable roles?
So they are, So the one of the main things you unlock pretty early is the mining laser. So if you have the mining laser on your ship, you'll unlock an upgrade to your scan ability, which will allow you to see minerals inside of asteroids, right? So then you use your mining laser on them, you collect all the resources, and you take it back, right? So you can basically stop doing anything else and put a mining laser on your big freighter and go get 30, 40 things worth of mining stuff. You can always have turrets and shields and stuff on your ship as well, but you can usually negotiate. Like if you're in a dogfight and you're about to lose, you can negotiate. Like I'll drop my cargo, you can have it, like whatever, or like I just want to get out of here. And sometimes it'll work. It's a bit of a dice roll, and sometimes it won't. Like sometimes, like I've had it happen where 2 different factions will be fighting, and I've managed to turn one into like, well, whatever, just get out of here. But then the other faction will go, no, you're dead. Like we're killing you. And so that was tense because it was like, well, now I've got to take out these guys without accidentally hitting these other ones. Otherwise, they're going to start on me too, and then I'm proper dead. And so, there is a limited capacity to be just kind of full mercantile. Like, all right, man, like just take the gold ore or take the crystals that I have in the back of the ship. Like, I'll just leave. You know what I mean? And you can get away with it sometimes, but not all the time. And that's where it kind of becomes a thing of like, it's a dice roll, I guess, like in real life, but those mechanics aren't really that deep, but they're there, and they're unique enough for kind of what they are. That I think that that is the way to cheese the game is to become a miner. Like buy the mining ship as quick as you can, go do a bunch of mining, you'll have more money.
So just like real life,
basically, and but
literal
like
fly and fly out.
Going into the mercantile, well done. Like going into that, Don, like you could, let's say there's a cluster in Missouri system, right? So there's like a thing of rocks in Missouri system. So you go mine the rocks, blah, blah. Like you can sell the diamonds and the ore there, or because they call it obtainium ore, which I find funny, obviously, with the Avatar meme. You can sell the obtainium there, and you might get an okay price, but like 6 systems over, they might buy it for triple, quadruple the price. Like, inside tip, the distillery is always looking for pure water. So if you can start mining pure water, they'll give you 5,000 credits a drop of pure water. That's pretty good money. So, you can always look at it like that and figure out which systems, like, in my head, I know 2 or 3 where it's like, cool, if I come across this reasonably common contraband, I know where to sell it because there's one system. So I either, take it and then drop it off there, or if I know I'm not going that way, I just won't pick it up. So you will get to that point where you'll be like, oh, cool, I've got to go back through to Missouri next or Colorado or wherever. When I'm on the way there, I'll sell some of this stuff that I have. Or if you're going the other way, and then by the time you come back, you could have sold 2 or 3 more things with that space that would have made you more money. You just like jettison them and then pick them up later. And so as you go on, like all your individual systems can come on and off. Like there is the ability to unlock a repair droid later that'll slowly rebuild all your internal systems, but it can't fix your hull and it can't fix certain things, but it can fix everything else. So there's ways and means to mitigate all of these unique little things that the game does, but yeah, like you could definitely just become, I'm full space mine. I don't even have a real weapon on this thing except for the turrets. And even then, I'm willing to negotiate. If you're willing to let me go, like I'll send you some credits. There's the capacity to do that and just not even have a single dogfight the whole time.
I've got two questions that I kind of want to tend towards wrapping up with. You started off with the story of there was a murder case and you're trying to chase down the killer. That it sounds obvious. It would be more of an involved story than that, but where that is the core story, from the gist that I'm getting from a lot of the visuals and a lot of what you've detailed about the rest of the game, it's much more of an open world, much more of seeing the radio in the ship. It seems like a playground in the same vein of like a Red Dead or a GTA or something. Do you think that that's sort of a fair way to put it?
Not really. It's multiple different small systems. So Red Dead, I could get on a horse, I could leave Mexico. Red Dead 2, I could leave Mexico on a horse and ride all the way to Valentine, which is like Montana. In one thing. I could just get on a horse and ride, and it would take me there and think. Each individual system requires a jump gate. So when you get to that jump gate, you can do it. However, inside of that system, you can fast travel if you want, or you can go into like sublight speed, which is super fast. So you just go, cool, I want to go over there, sublight, hit sublight, off it goes. But that said, you're still then limited by, you might get attacked by hostiles, you might crash into a meteorite, you know what I mean? So there are still things that you need to account for. But inside those systems, absolutely. And some of the systems are more interesting than others. Some systems are literally just there to be jump gates, and you might see a refill station. There's the Caballeros is the refill stations. They refill your missiles, refill your things. You're literally there, refill your stuff, keep going. It's like the gas station in the middle of the drive. But then you go to other stations and it'll be like, cool, there's 2 Commonwealth stations, 2 independent stations, and like a pirate camp here. This is an interesting system because it's like, cool, I play most of these games pretty neutral. Like I usually stay out of the pirates' way, but if there's easy money to be made, like if someone's got a $5,000 bounty on their head, well, I'm going to kill them. Even then you can capture. So to give you an idea of the kind of the morality of the game, you have the Commonwealth, which is like the main, federation of states, and you have the pirates, Red. It's not Red Dawn, it's Red something, and so they're the two main. Red. That's a different thing. So they have the two. They're the 2 separate kind of main factions that all your karma is distributed between. You have independent stations, and some independent stations are dodgier than others. Like some independent stations are just purely, this is like an arty one, so they want expensive cargo. They want all this unique stuff, blah, 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 blah. They want these kind of supplies. And then you go to ones that are like mining worlds, and they're happy to take a little bit of like, under-the-counter drugs and stuff like that. So if you want to sell, narco cola, that's you go there. You know what I mean? So that's the kind of the 2 levels there. And then you have like just your general pirates and your general traders and all that kind of stuff. So you could literally become Scourge of the traders. You literally just fly around every time you see like a trader ship, you blow it up, steal their cargo, get the hell out of Dodge. You can go full cop if you want. The problem with that is that because you're not actually a cop, they'll scan your cargo, and if you've got anything that's contraband, you're out of there. So you know what I mean? Like you can install modules that allow you to carry smuggled goods, so that can't be scanned. So what I mean, like it really does offer this kind of level of customization to play, and even going into the weapons, you've got to manage your energy. Your power plant can only put out a certain amount of sustained fire. So the main things that share so you've got 35 gigajoules of power, and so your radar will take up 2, and your core systems will take up 10, and this will take up 1. So you've got 15 to 20 gigajoules to play with at the end of it, right? And that might get you 9 seconds of sustained fire. So you've got to decide, am I just going to launch everything I've got at this guy, like put all thing to weapons, maximum damage, maximum uptime, maximum thing, great for killing big freighters and stuff like that. Or do you have to go, cool, I'm going to go like a staggered approach, so they shoot once each kind of thing, and then I'm going to attach a physical gun on that shoots out metal cores, which is much slower, but it uses ammo, which is unlimited, but it doesn't use any of the power on the ship. Or am I going to put missiles in place, which have a certain amount of uses, but or am I going to use torpedoes, which may use energy, but if they hit, they'll kill basically one hit. So, balancing all that and then making sure you've got enough juice for the afterburners. You know what I mean? Like you start to get to that point where you've got to balance your, and so that in itself becomes an interesting kind of meta. Is like, cool. I've got two of these. I've got two at the moment. I'm running 2 Gauss rifles, so that's great for taking out shields. They're super fast. They're reasonably low energy, decent damage, decent range. And then I've got a third gun on the top, which is a metal one. So once I've taken out shields, if I can get 2 or 3 shots with the red one, they're dead. Plus, I've got the cluster rockets. So the cluster rockets are basically if I'm being attacked by like a ship that's faster than me, all I've got to do is take out one set of their shields, whether it's on the side, the front, wherever, and launch that, and they're dead. Like if all of them hit, any small ship is pretty much just cactus from that point. So, like it comes down to making it work. And I think that is probably one of the things that the game has in its favor, that all of your energies go to just making whatever you can get away with work. And that's,
Well, I mean, given the sort of flexibility and the creativity that you as a player have the opportunity to try and explore, you mentioned the difficulty earlier. And that, as someone who is terrible at games, means that it sounds a bit intimidating, especially if, like, even at normal, it's a reasonable challenge. Is there much of an effort put towards accessibility for players that maybe aren't even familiar with?
Hold ZL. Honestly, like the ZL thing is real broken. Every dogfight becomes easy because suddenly you can just chase them down. So you still do have to be wary of the wider scope and the wider implications of stuff. You still get access to, you can be the trader, you can be all this, blah, 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 blah. There's still those kind of offerings there. And there is, you can set it so that auto aim will exist normally. I've turned it off entirely, and that's why a game is harder for me, because normally if you aim for the circle, you'll hit them, but you can set it so that the guns themselves will automatically aim for the circle, if that makes sense. So so that'll definitely make it easier, and that'll take a lot of that variability out of the dogfights that may be causing issues. But as far as like the trading and stuff goes, it doesn't really need to be played with.
Like, I mean, most of the survival and like when you were talking about energy, the survival and the combat side of things is where the difficulty sounds, I don't want to say prohibitive, but like more of the concern. I guess you mentioned that you went from normal to harder. Does it let you go the other way as well, or is normal the easiest it is?
No, I'm pretty sure you can change it on the fly. But keep in mind, there's two more levels beyond what I am playing at the moment.
Right. Okay.
So so beyond the levels what I'm playing at, there's 2 more difficulty levels, and I don't know what anyone would get out of playing at that difficulty, but that's, you know what I mean? Like that's just,
that's basically elite dangerous territory there.
Star Citizen, let's go.
Well, the other one as well is, as you go into stations, so when you dock into a station and you leave that station, you save. So if you're going to try anything risky, do it after you've just left the station, because you'll just restart back on that station. But you do lose. So one of the things you can do, you can go into, again, like the old Wild West saloons. You go into the saloon, you say, hey, is there any bounties going at the moment? And they'll turn around to you and they'll say, oh yeah, here's a few. If you do die, you will lose access to them, so you don't know where they are anymore. But that's the main thing that you'll lose. Like any mission stuff that you have on board, you won't lose anything like that. So the penalty for dying isn't huge. It's just that you will die more than you think. So it's not like if you die, suddenly you've got to restart from the last story mission you did. Right? So literally dock at a station. If you're worried about a mission, dock at a station, and you've saved. You know what I mean? So there was one mission I had to do where I had to defend it, or I had to keep an eye on a gate, on one of the gates that was coming through, and this guy comes through and it's like blah, 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 and then you've got to hold him off until the guy who hired you to do the job comes along to arrest him. And it's like, so that's fine. His ship is already pretty done up ship with decent weapons, and then he's got 3 or 4 mates who show up, and their ships are all pretty good, Nick. Like 2 dog fighters, 2 medium-sized fighters. So it's super tough. If you've just got like a normal ship, it's really hard to do. So basically you have to scan it, figure out what the best way is, but you've got to stay in the fight. So, that mission, I failed it twice, just straight up, just got murdered twice. I'm like, I can't do this. So I had to go and grind other stuff get enough money, purchase some better weapons, and even then I scraped through with the skin of my teeth. Like my windshield was shattered. It was like I was at that point where the hull integrity was just enough to get me back to the next station. I had no boosters. Luckily, where the gate you fired at is just down the road from the next station. So it didn't take me long. But so I think. It's a shame that it's only single player in that sense, because I think it would have been nice to have a co-op person for that stuff. But I don't know. I'm really loving the game. I've played dozens of hours of it. I'll play more of it as time goes on. But very very much can recommend. But it is a tough. Some of the dogfights and some of the difficulty can get real tough later on.
Cool. So Rebel Galaxy Outlaw is out now on PC, Switch, PS4, and Xbox One. I imagine as part of that delayed launch, it would be out on Steam as well now.
Yeah, it is available on Steam.
Yeah, it is on Steam. Yeah, cool. For sure. Yeah.
But it was on Epic Store, whatever. And it's fine on Switch, but you can tell that it's running on Switch is basically the only thing you got to say about that.
Yeah, I mean, like when you're playing it here, So look, I don't recommend playing on Switch, but if that's the platform you buy it on, it's still fun.
Cool. That actually brings us to the end of the show for this week. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. If you want to see us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter /New Game Plus TV. On Twitch, we stream the show every Thursday, 8 p.m.-ish, twitch.tv/New Game Plus TV. And you can actually find the full video show there as well, because if you're watching on TV, you're getting about 25 minutes of what was a hour and 45-minute show. So feel free to check that out if you want more on Star Wars, Squadron, and Rebel Galaxy Outlaw. Forgotten all the name of the games that we were talking about.
Rogue Squadron and Rebel Star Wars.
Look, I'm just happy that it wasn't like
space game to
colon
space.
like 5-word subtitle. I'm not here for that. On YouTube, youtube.com/New Game Plus TV, and the website is newgameplus.tv. We also are on SoundCloud, so if you want to find us on your favorite podcasting app, you can do that. Jason and Don, thank you so much for hanging out with me tonight.
Thank you, audience. Thank you, Jack.
Yes, thank you for watching at home, and we'll catch you next time.